Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Tuesday, October 10th edition of the Midday Market Update. I'm Michael Vincent. Today, I'm joined by Zach Strickland, our Director of Freight Market Intelligence. Is that correct, Zach?
That is accurate, Mike.
Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for filling in.
Thank you for having me out.
You're welcome.
And Godspeed to Kevin in Oklahoma.
There you go. So Midday Market Update, as many of you know, is our twice weekly live interactive show. So we're live on LinkedIn, FreightWaves LinkedIn, and Facebook. So get your questions and comments in, and we'll do our best to get to those and address any comments or questions that you have throughout the show. We got a great show today. We're going to go to Alan Adler, our Detroit Chief Bureau first. A little bit of change of plans here today. But first, let us say thanks to our sponsor, Amazon Freight. Freight moves fast, and you need a shipping partner that can handle what's in front of you while also planning for the future. Amazon Freight has opened up their network to enable shippers of all sizes and ability to simplify, optimize, and invent. Tap into the expertise of Amazon with a freight partner that is here to help you navigate the road ahead. Discover what's next at at freight.amazon.com immediately following the show.
FreightWaves.
Yeah, a little slip of the tongue there, right?
we work at a place where we say that a lot.
32 years, and I still run for the phone, answer it in 3 rings, and say, "Thanks for calling Roadway." Right. Still happens. But we have Alan Adler on the line. Thank you for taking a break from your set at MASH and talking with us today. Alan, how are you today?
I've never heard that Alan Alda thing ever. That is so original.
Never. Yeah, that's what I do. These are the jokes, people. So what do we got going? What do we got going on here, Alan? I find it very interesting. I know that Zach does as well, and many in our audience. The term SPAC has really kind of blown up in their ears and in their minds and in the headlines throughout this year, right? So you have a very interesting article that came out, I believe, this morning, 7 a.m. We kind of want to dig into that a little bit. So take it away, Alan. What do we got going on?
All right, well, let's start with some definitions for those who aren't following this newest acronym out there, and that is SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company. Basically, these are blank check companies. They're companies that are shells. They're created with an IPO. The idea is that you would raise money just like you would at an IPO, but you're not raising it for anything at that moment. The idea is that all this money is going to go into trust, and then it's going to be pledged to or reverse merger to a company that is a target for that group. So what we've got this morning is just the latest SPAC. I couldn't even say if it's the newest one. There's so many. But this one's interesting for a bunch of reasons. One is it's being set up by a guy named Barry Engel. Barry was most recently the president of GM North America. It's a $100 billion business. He stepped away from GM and decided that he would like to try the SPAC thing. And he pulled together a lot of people from Agility Fuel Systems, which was the company he used to be CEO of. And these guys are natural gas providers, for heavy duty commercial vehicles. So Barry and his crew now have raised $380 million. They did that in less than a month, by the way, which is pretty amazing. And now they're out looking for a company to invest in. So the story, which actually is one of the longer ones I've written at FreightWaves, basically covers the whole idea of where he came from and what his plan is in terms of what they're targeting. They like to say next-gen mobility. That could be anything, but they specifically mentioned freight tech and commercial vehicles. So I dug a little deeper. I did a little bit of research, not a ton. And it's interesting that one of the board members out there is a guy named Ryan Popple, who might be familiar with you guys. Ryan was the CEO of Proterra, which is an electric bus company. Now, Proterra has raised a lot of money over the last few years, $1 billion by one estimate that TechCrunch put together. And Proterra, because of Ryan Popple is on the board, would just seem to be a terrific target for this group that's called Quell, or Quell, Quell. By the way, I could not make that work in Scrabble on Saturday, but it does.
I'd have challenged you.
I applied my Urban Dictionary. You lose.
So it's interesting to me the SPAC. The SPACs they raise money for Nothing in particular. I mean, they have to have a nebulous definition of what they are, right? I mean, it's not just give me money and trust me, right?
Well, it is, actually. That's exactly what it is. The idea of the investors who go into these IPOs, and those are traditional IPOs in the sense of going through the whole SEC process, but basically they're described, the acronym SPAC describes exactly what they are. It's a special purpose acquisition company, meaning I'm out here just to buy something else. That's all I'm here for. And ultimately, within 2 years, which is the guideline given to find a company to invest in, I will do that within 2 years. You investors come along with me. In some cases, if you don't like where I'm going, you can get out, get your money out. But generally, the idea is that you're in to see what happens. You're rolling the dice.
Yeah. So, Alan, how is this different? Like, why would people generally choose to go this route versus a traditional IPO?
Well, the biggest reason, Zach, is that it cuts a lot of steps out of the process. These take about 4 to 6 months to pull together, whereas a traditional IPO is a year to a year and a half, a lot more background work. And ultimately, the only people who get to decide what the company is worth, the valuation, are the investment bankers. And they do that about a day before the company goes public. In this case, you've got a lot of retail investors involved as soon as these companies come up, and you've seen this amazing volatility. This is both a good thing and a bad thing for some of these SPACs. But basically, it's much more open to the rest of us, if you will.
Gotcha. So how is this, it sounds a little bit, congruent to maybe a private equity investment as well. Is it similar to that, or are we still, pretty far removed?
It would be closer to private equity, certainly, than a traditional IPO, but it is still governed by the SEC. I mean, the SEC reviews these programs or these reverse mergers and asks questions before they go forward. But basically, the companies, typically smaller companies, have an opportunity to sort of lay out their business plan, and you really don't get the opportunity to do that if you go to a traditional IPO. You're pretty much bound by the structure of those, and it's all pretty much the bankers are the guys who do the thing.
So, Alan, I mean, it seems to me, I mean, I get the idea if you're a company that it appears to be easier to go through a SPAC. If you're a company looking to go public, right? It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit quicker. From the other side, with the SPAC, does it open the door for maybe deals that aren't vetted, or the due diligence isn't as good as it should have been?
Well, I think we saw that happen already, Michael, and we saw it happen at Nikola. Although, let's be honest, the kind of diligence that people accuse Nikola of not doing, or of the SPAC not doing it, really comes down to history, long history that goes well before Nikola. I think Nikola itself, in terms of the business plan, was vetted pretty well, and it attracted a lot of people. Now, the one thing I mentioned a moment ago that Nikola attracted, and you've seen this with some others, is a lot of retail investment, a lot of people kind of betting on it for a little while and then moving away from it. And one of the patterns that seems to be developing is that as soon as these companies go public, and they do go pretty quickly, you've got one coming up this week, called Lordstown Motors Corporation, which has its vote on Thursday. And one of the things that you should watch for is somebody's going to go after, some short seller will go after them and try to drive down the price, depending how much it goes up. So there's a lot of games being played out there with SPACs. They're not all going to make it. About 30% of them fail. But it is interesting to note, and I've mentioned this in the story, that one SPAC which you might be surprised about was Dasky. That's the flatbed company, the roll-up of all the private companies. They came into the world as a SPAC, which is very interesting. But now it's mostly, the reason we're paying so much attention to it is because of trucking, electrification, and some of the infrastructure plays that are out there.
Now, Alan, did they make any, they're basically going to invest in, freight tech and mobility options. Did they make any further specific claims about what they were looking to invest in?
Well, they kind of mentioned 3 areas. One would be sort of the passenger car, let's say electric car area for a passenger vehicle. The other would be, logistics and freight tech, and, trucking or buses, which would involve electrification. And the third area that they're looking at is sort of the plumbing, if you will, which would be, electric charging and alternative fuels and that kind of thing. And what's interesting about Quell or Quell. Wow, that's tough. Anyway, what's interesting about, I know, easy for you to say, about these guys is that they have background, they have expertise. I mean, Barry Engel, lots of automotive expertise. So a woman named Kathleen Lagaki, she was an executive at Ford Motor Company and then ran Tower Automotive, the supplier, as CEO. They've got good finance background. So these guys are operators as well as just, money people. And one of the places I think you have to watch in SPACs is where there are people who are investing things they don't know about. And that's the same for all of us. If we're going to invest in the market, don't bet on something you don't understand. These guys are operators. So I would give them, pretty good bet that they could get something done if they can find a good company. You've had 143 SPACs this year so far, and last year you had 59. So obviously it's the flavor of the month, and it's very popular. The other thing that happens is a lot of the good dance partners are off the board. They're not there now. So your search is going to be harder to find that quality company, $1 billion valuation or higher that you want to invest in that's actually going to make it.
Yeah, and apparently looking for a good name is difficult as well. Hey, Alan, thank you so much for that. We've got some people here with comments. William Rufy saying, hey, guys, he's with Canada Transportation at Amazon. DV Logan, hello, Zach and Michael, good morning from Chicago. DV Logan, also good morning or afternoon. Are you learning anything? Rhonda where is she at here? She just left me. Rhonda Bembenza Zimmerman, good morning from Arizona. Yes, I'm learning a little bit. Very interesting concept SPAC. So, Alan, thank you so much for that. A lot of interest out there, people learning some stuff. Our own Kevin Hill chiming in, hey, how everybody's doing today while he's out on the golf course. Thank you so much for that. We got to move on right now, and we have Nick Austin in the studio today to talk about the weather. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. We got a pretty big winter storm up in parts of the plains. It's going to be really messy up there, frankly, for the rest of the week, not just today. So, if we look at sonar and the radar that's up there, we've got mostly light to moderate snow right now from the Dakotas all the way into Minnesota, including Minneapolis, St. Paul, some light snow there. But another storm's going to get cranking up after this one fades out later today or into tonight. Another one's going to crank up beginning tomorrow afternoon and lasting into probably early Friday. So this area here where I'm highlighting on the map is going to be the main impact zone. So a lot of the areas that are getting the snow, the freezing rain, and some of the icy conditions today will get hit again from Wednesday night into early Friday. We're talking about portions of I-90, 94, and 29 and 35 from Montana all the way through the Dakotas, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, St. Paul, Bismarck. A lot of these areas are just going to get hit again. But that one will be stronger than the storm that's up there now. So we're going to see heavier snow, several inches could pile up. We're going to see blowing snow, a lot of limited visibility, some icy conditions here and there. So it's just going to be really messy. These are mostly backhaul markets, so there's a lot more inbound volume tenders than outbound. But there'll still be some truckers that are probably trying to drive through this. If they can't get around it, just have to be extra careful, especially on the bridges and overpasses. That's where it really starts to get icy in a lot of areas. But most of it, I think, is going to be snow. And there's a new article actually up on the website right now with it's kind of a follow-up to an article that I posted earlier this month with more winter weather driving tips for truckers. So go check that out. I'm going to talk about another tropical storm that's out there. That'll be coming up later in the show.
Tropical storm, snow and tropical storms, Zach.
That's right.
I mean, if you're a weather fan, you got the wide range there. Yeah. Minneapolis to Chicago. Anybody driving up there here over the next day or so.
Yeah, that's right. Put your chains on and get out of the way of the tropical storm.
Right.
It's crazy weather. But so let's move on. Let's bring in, we got Andrew Cox here as usual to go through the headlines today. Thank you for coming in today. Okay, we're going to stall a little bit there. So, Zach, FreightWaves Now. Let's talk about the markets that are going on today. You were on FreightWaves Now this morning talking about OTRI has, or outbound tender rejects have come back a little bit, and so have volumes. Is that right?
So, yeah, they've bounced up after a 10-day drop and which again we kind of thought that we would see a softer market.
Yeah.
In October, things kind of calmed down a little bit, but still the import volumes continue to keep enough freight potential in the environment to where carriers are actually flocking to some of these larger markets. Like Los Angeles and Ontario have been these hot spots, these hotbeds of activity so far. Tender rejection rates, though, starting to come down, even though volumes are remaining stable.
Tender rejections in those big markets, right?
Yep.
With your the weighted tender rejection, et cetera, would those are the ones that influence the overall index more.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So they have a lot more volume, command a lot more capacity at that, and carriers are noticing that and moving towards them.
Very cool. Very cool. Excellent. Thank you for that. Andrew is ready now, so let's go to Andrew for the headlines. Andrew, thanks for coming in. Let's go for it. I guess the first one up is EPA settles with 3 trucking companies for violating California trucking emissions laws. Is that right, Andrew?
That's right, Mike. The EPA has announced that it has settled with 3 different companies for violating the California Air Resources Board, or CARB's, truck and bus regulations. The 3 companies involved were Roadrunner Transportation Systems, Ruan Transportation Management Systems, and Boise Cascade Company. Roadrunner was fined $117,000 for operating heavy-duty diesel vehicles that lacked the correct diesel particulate filters required by CARB, and also for operating unregistered and non-compliant drayage trucks. The same deal for Ruan. They also operated heavy-duty trucks without those diesel particulate filters. Ruan also failed to verify that the carriers it had hired to run loads in and out of California were compliant with CARB standards. They have agreed to pay $125,000 in penalties and will now use compliant trucks moving forward. Lastly, we have Boise Cascade, who, like Ruan, also failed to verify that its carriers were CARB compliant, and as a result, Boise will pay $175,000. Although the CARB and the Trump administration's EPA have been at odds with other clean energy and other clean vehicle emission standards here, they do team up to federally enforce the CARB's truck and bus rulings. This is really a trend to watch, though, because with trucking demand at historic highs and the strong import volumes on the West Coast and the capacity constraints on the West Coast, this could be a trend that continues moving forward. We know that trucking companies and shippers alike have been looking to find capacity anywhere they can. So again, something to watch moving forward.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, just like you said, Andrew, that the California market has really been one that, we used to avoid. I mean, a lot of carriers avoid that area, or did, until just recently, when the market, over the last couple of years there has really blown up. A lot of regulations to get involved in out there. It costs more to operate in California than just about any other state outside of New York, I believe.
Oh it absolutely does, and it looks like they're willing to maybe bend the rules a little bit to try and sneak by there, as trying to participate with the high rates and the volume and the capacity demand, which is really interesting. Thank you for that, Andrew. So let's move on to hours of service. I know that there's probably 1 or 2 people in the audience interested in what's going on with the hours of service lawsuit, I would imagine. So what do we got there, Andrew?
Yeah, just a couple, Mike. So the deal here is that the Owner-Operators Independent Driving Association, or OIDA, has filed a motion to intervene with the U.S. Court of Appeals in D.C. This motion is in support of the FMCSA, which is defending its rule changes from a challenge filed in September by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, so we'll dive into that here in a second. The Teamsters, along with 3 other safety groups, argue that the FMCSA's loosening of HOS provisions will exacerbate driver fatigue and decrease driver safety. The court challenge by the Teamsters did not prevent the rule changes from going into effect, but if eventually successful, the court could set aside the rule, experts say. OIDA has countered by saying that the changes have positively benefited OIDA members and that the final HOS ruling will provide drivers with more opportunities for rest and greater control of their own schedules. The argument from the Teamsters is that the changes will decrease driver safety and increase the amount of vehicle miles driven. For an industry that gets paid by the mile, that may seem like a strategy that could be in question here. But this is, again, a developing story that our Washington correspondent, John Gallagher, will be on top of. So as we get more news, we will relay it to you. So stay tuned to FreightWaves for this one.
Yeah, this is one of those that, safety gets thrown around a lot as a reason for doing something or not doing something. And I think that we bury it a little bit in some of this logic. We were talking before the show. I actually read this completely the wrong way, that OIDA was asking for this ruling to be overturned when it was the Teamsters, which, again, as you pointed out, Makes total sense.
Now, yeah, because you were like, why are they arguing this? Their argument is idiotic. So, wait, no, it's the Teamsters arguing this. It's the union arguing this. And yeah, follow the money, and you'll figure out that what they're talking about safety isn't. I wouldn't say safety. I don't understand, because the rule does not change the amount that they can drive, right? It gives them the ability to be more flexible on their rest, and really give them that ability to not be so constrained as to, well, I'm not tired right now, but I have to take a break, and I use it at other times when I actually am and do think safety is of mind and I do need to rest, right?
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of the criticism of the HOS rules is that drivers get tired at different times, and they need to have more flexibility as to when they take advantage of that, and then traffic patterns, et cetera. Anyway, it was it is still an interesting topic to discuss and debate, that HOS ruling.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Andrew, I don't know what your insights are on this, but what do you think the motivation is there from the Teamsters and the union there to fight this?
Well, it seems to me to be a market share fight, right? So the Teamsters think that these HOS extensions or exemptions or changing of the rules will allow more freight to flow out of the Teamsters and into independent owner-operators. So it seems to me that they're just fighting to maintain market share and to ensure that they can get their hands on as much freight as they possibly can, which they see this HOS exemption being a problem for them in doing so. So it looks to me to be a market share thing.
Yeah, similar to railroads chiming in on length of trailers, et cetera, right?
Precisely, Mike.
Yeah,
so my third story here for you is about an investigation into a CSX death that recently happened. Federal investigators are looking into the death of a CSX employee at the ACA yard in Richmond, Virginia on October 12th. Randy Sandy, who was 37, he worked as a conductor for CSX. He leaves behind a wife and 5 children. The circumstances surrounding the incident haven't really been released yet. The National Transportation Safety Board has sent investigators to the site, and a preliminary report could come out within 2 to 4 weeks following the incident. The NTSB typically investigates rail incidents when the incidents are more serious or when they could potentially move the needle on safety or have a broader application. According to the Federal Railroad Administration, they have been on duty. There have been 2 on-duty railroad deaths between January and July of 2020. That is actually a really good number historically. In 2019, there were 17 on-duty deaths for the whole year. So we're doing pretty good on a historical stand.
Yeah, this is just a sad story.
It really is.
To me, like, condolences to the wife and family, and friends of the conductor. But they're definitely going to be investigating this, as they always do. The railroad is very cognizant of these issues, and they do a lot of due diligence when they do investigate these situations. Yeah,
they absolutely do. What was staggering to me, and I echo your sentiment, our condolences to the family of this conductor. But looking at the deaths per year, 2 is amazingly low.
And trains are not small.
No.
I know I'm still a little bit nervous when I cross some of those non-barricaded railroad crossings.
Yeah, me too. I slow down and look. Talking about non-barricaded railroad crossings, we have Anthony Smith, our lead economist in the House, to talk economics with us here. Anthony, how's it going, my friend?
And hopefully you're better at segues.
Well, he's kind of like a freight train walking down the hall sometimes. You got to get out of his way is what I was referring to there.
I love the segue. That's right, Mike. So we have a couple new updates in the economy. We have industrial production that was just released last week in addition to retail sales. So jumping into retail sales, these were results for September. What we saw that was an actual increase in retail sales in the month of September, which is a little bit surprising, at least for me, just because we are that far away from those bonus benefits being expired within those jobs claims, having those $600 weekly bonus benefits. Now $300, I think, is backed by federal governments, but the rest being somewhat made up potentially by some certain states. But we are seeing that there was overall growth on a month-to-month basis for retail sales. So that's something surprising. And so we're looking at upcoming months. We're seeing that we just had, of course, Amazon Prime Day and other major e-commerce holidays take place. And so that's suggesting that there will likely be another month of growth coming especially from retail sales of non-store retailers. So, of course, retailing-facing segments, e-commerce-facing segments. So a bit of good news on the retail sector side.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that people still are able to spend money. It's almost like counterintuitive. I mean, the benefits ran out, the $600 benefits run out in July, and we're talking about August, September, still showing a lot of consumption, right, Anthony? I mean, do we think that this is going to slow down? Is there something we're missing?
There is a lot of reason to expect there to be somewhat of a slowdown coming up and a loss of momentum. I mean, we're looking at November, of course, we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that good stuff kind of leading into some of those peak retail sales throughout the holiday season. But without additional stimulus and with those stubbornly high jobs claim rates that still keep coming in, there's a lot of expectations for there to be some sluggish movements for retail sales in the coming months. One of the things, if we do see retail sales start to come down, it will likely be that there will still be strong segments within retail sales. Of course, just mentioned e-commerce, that's likely to stay strong. Another area that was remaining pretty resilient, didn't even really quite see a full dip, was retail sales for building materials. So we're looking at, of course, those home renovation projects that have been going on throughout the year, and of course looking at any kind of natural disasters or fire or anything like that that may have impacted the different people in different parts of the country. So that's been a segment that's remained strong. Oddly enough, or one of the other segments that remained pretty, that bounced back pretty quickly was retail sales for furniture. And of course, there are downstream effects when we're looking at things like housing starts and new construction and existing home sales and those homes being filled up with new furniture and appliances. But furniture was another pretty strong point within the retail sales report. So good news overall for retail segment. Not so much good news for the industrial production side, where we saw some sluggish activity. And I think it's likely that we're going to see sluggish activity for for industrial production throughout the remainder of the year as comps get a little bit harsher.
Yeah, do you think that some of that industrial production is suffering from a lack of business investment at this point? They're still kind of sitting up. We've still got an election to figure out, and a few other, like you said, some of those headwinds with consumer activity. Do you think a lot of this is stemming from, businesses sitting on some cash?
Definitely. I think that's a huge part of it. Business-to-business activity slowing down, a lot of wait and see for a lot of potential companies that are not just yet ready to invest in any kind of capital good expenditures. And so there are a host of issues that could potentially weigh in on the industrial sector right now, but thankfully we have a lot of surprising consumer goods flooding the economy, keeping freight volumes up depending on which side of the market you are on. But when we're looking at overall industrial production, there is a lot of concern for maybe there will be some sluggish activity throughout the remainder of the year. Although when we look at the PMI, new orders are above 50. It is starting to come down quite a bit, and production overall is expanding, but we're just going to keep an eye on what that pace of expansion is. Of course, when looking at regional Fed surveys, there is a bit of a mixed bag. So some surprising downward movement for the Empire State Index just last week, while there was some upward movement for the Philly Fed Index. So looking at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, that area had a little bit more promising results. So of course, theme as always is going to be a piece by piece, region by region game. But overall, the consumer is just keep on buying right now, and that's supplying some freight volumes. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out, especially with this being an election cycle.
Yeah, it is interesting, Anthony. With the consumers keeping on spending, are they planning on a stimulus, and where is that at right now? What's your view on it?
Definitely. So there have been talks between the administration and Congress about more stimulus. It seems like all sides want this additional stimulus, but there has not been an agreed upon package put together just yet. There's even talks back and forth of maybe this will be a post-election thing. So a lot of individuals are wondering, just because we have seen so much robust activity from the consumers, whether or not an additional stimulus is even needed. I think when we're looking at a potential stimulus effects, that's just one part of everything right now. The other aspect that we have to keep in mind is that in January, we are looking at potential of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of potential consumers or of Americans throughout the country that may be facing some eviction woes if they have missed any kind of payments, and now are going to have all that be due come the first of the year. So that's going to be an area of quite concerned when we're looking at the first part of the year. So I think there are a lot of headwinds, a lot of room of concern when we're looking at potential stimulus and support for those Americans that are still struggling to find a job now that we're seeing that there is a lot more permanent job loss than previously expected.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Anthony. Thank you very much for the economic update today. A couple quick comments here from on LinkedIn. So DV Logan, drivers must be availed of every safety and comfort possible for having the best over-the-road haul experience. We must make space for our supply chain personnel. They work hard for us every single day. Rob Bussey of BWS Logistics popping in while on a lunch break. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. Rhonda Bambenza Zimmerman says, let them be flexible and rest when they need to. Talking about the hours of service, I would imagine. DV Logan comes back with Chicago. Weather raw and damp and in the 40s. Imagine that. That's kind of strange. Eric Sita, the middle class is going broke right now. So anyways, a couple comments that are in there. I mean, obviously, the support from many of our fans are on the side of the drivers and the hours of service, giving them that flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a common sentiment. And, you know, anybody that operates in the environment has obviously looked at the hours of service. And they understand that, hey, you know, think about it. Just put yourself in a driver's position. Yeah. You're driving long days. You know, you get tired at different times all the time. And you need to adjust, but that can dramatically disrupt your output.
Right. So our next guest is Andrew Lockwood, Senior Manager at Sudith Global Logistics. And he's got an article, commentary out on FreightWaves.com. Go to FreightWaves.com. You can catch all of our articles, news articles, and commentaries like this, the ultimate 2-for-1. Andrew is coming on today to pitch us a brand new idea, is the way I understand it. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on the show. Very nice to see you, my friend. How are you?
Hey, glad to be here in the FreightWaves Shark Tank, if you will. I mean, this being Tuesday, I've got the best Tuesday 2-for-1. We're talking about kind of redefining the industry. It's a great idea, but here it is. I mean, very succinctly, more than one truck moving down the road. Let's put 2 trailers behind one truck. That's it, right? I mean, it's mind-blowing. Very simple, but mind-blowing. So we'll just start with that.
Get out. Is this like a land train concept or something? What are you?
You know, I mean, it's crazy, right? Two trailers. But here's the thing. Other developed countries have done this. So let me give you the backstory here, since I'm going to pitch this on the FreightWaves Shark Tank. Look, I was playing with my 3-year-old son. They've got better, improved die-cast trucks than when I was young. But he's got one with 2 trailers, right? So I was playing with this in his room the other day. I'm driving down the Florida Turnpike, and I see 2 very long trailers behind a rig, and I'm like, I've been in logistics for a while. This looks a little odd. Is this illegal or what? I check the rule book, and on Florida's Turnpike, you can have 2 twin 48s, right? As long as you're underneath the length requirement, that's feasible. And the rule is you can go up to 15 miles off the Florida Turnpike, and you're all good. Now, other areas of the country have other rules and restrictions, but really on our interstate highway system, going back to the Eisenhower era, and then the most recent laws that were enacted, 1975 and 1982, that's where we have this framework and paradigms today on lengths of the trailers. But guys, think about the number of problems in the industry that this solves. If we can say, you know what, instead of it being a 53-foot trailer or 2 twin 28s, what if we can take that and say, you know what, it's a 2-for-1, right? 2 48-foot trailers behind a tractor. Mind-blowing.
Like bringing Rocky Mountain doubles across the United States.
Yeah. Now wait a minute, Andrew. You're telling me. So you're going to add length. You're going to add length and weight. Won't you destroy the interstates?
And see, that's the argument. So guys, here's what I found. I did a little research. There is a hidden battle beneath the surface here that I was unaware of between LTL carriers, Amazon on one side. You've got the railroads on the other. Let me give you the railroads take. And by the way, I love model, I had model trains when I was young. I have a soft spot in my heart for the railroads. We need them in the supply chain to exist. They do what they do well. Here's the thing though. The railroads are arguing that by lengthening trailers, by putting more weight on the road, It's going to be some kind of crazy number, 1.1 billion and more damage to the roads. And by the way, they say the carriers only account for about 50% of the cost that's going to be needed to repair those roadways. So that's their argument. Here's why I'm crying foul, is I think that is it's really a competition argument. Railways have adapted. When the coal went away, they adapted. When J.B. Hunt started the intermodal program, the railroads adapted. I think the railroads need to adapt to what this is. And here's the thing: it's a great point in American history where we need an infrastructure bill. And we have all these pressing needs in the industry, e-com boom, driver shortage. Guys, I'm not solving world hunger here, but it seems like there's a lot of transportation industry problems we could solve with this.
It sounds like it, and I would hazard a guess that a tractor with two longer trailers and a dolly in between them is a tad lighter than two tractors and a trailer each running side by side across a bridge. I'm just guessing.
Maybe a little bit.
Just guessing. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just guessing. Now, but there's got to be other to that. I mean, I know Zach is against this because he's scared of the damage to the interstates. But to change his mind, because I'm only going into this deal if you can convince Zach as well. What other benefits would there be out there? Is there carbon footprint benefits, cost benefits, anything to the supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we look at the current infrastructure bill that's really stalled right now, why did it stall? Well, it got pork barreled. We have all of the green parts of that deal, affordable housing, parts that have nothing to do with infrastructure that got pork barreled into this deal. So it's stalled where it is. And here's, if we take a step back, look, unemployment went up with what's going on with the COVID crisis. There's a lot of, and politicians love this phrase, shovel-ready jobs. There's a lot of shovel-ready jobs for infrastructure projects that are waiting and they're on hold. They just need funding. And so, look, I say do it at the same time. Create the long freight trains, if you will, two trailers behind a truck. And maybe you have some increased damage to the roadways. But guess what? You're going to pull more trucks off the roadways overall. You're exactly right. Instead of two trucks, you're just going to have one. Or you could have 1.5 trucks for every two. You pull trucks off the roads. It's been proven to be safe, at least on the Florida Turnpike. You solve the greenhouse piece, little by little, the driver shortage piece. We only know that demands continue to go up. And we just heard from Anthony, I don't think the American consumers are going to stop consuming. So there's so many issues there that you can solve all at once by it. To me, we've got to do this through our lawmakers and politicians, but why not, right? We're operating off a 1975 paradigm with our interstates.
Now, you have to convince me still.
Oh, she's still not convinced, Andrew. You got work to do, my friend.
Yeah. So again, back to the infrastructure that was developed around, these 48 and 53-foot trailers. How, what are some of the challenges that may exist, with these twin 33s versus what, the twin 28s exist, obviously.
Even triples in certain states.
Yeah. And again, a lot of these are, you put a nice map in your article, kind of illustrating where these were available, and a lot of them were in these wide open states, the Northwest, Western states, where you had a lot of room. So is there some sort of infrastructural challenge that, other than obviously the widespread damage to roads everywhere, that I need to be worried about?
No, I think it is a very real challenge in certain areas, right? The geography. If you drive any interstate in West Virginia, you're going up or down. There's no flat like there is here in Florida. So, I mean, you do bring about a good point, because look, unless we solve the infrastructure issue, your point's very valid. And I think that's why the railroads have taken that position of saying, look, this is only going to increase the damage on the roadways. And to be clear, I know that what the LTL carriers are lobbying for is the twin 33s, right? Right now we're at 28s, they're going to 33s. Well, to me, that stops too far short of the goal. Let me tell you why. On LinkedIn, somebody read the article, they reached out and they said, Andrew, do you think the trucking industry is behind this? And I said, well, two things. One, I don't think the industry in general really knows about this. And then secondly, I think we're stopping too far short with only saying we're trying for twin 33s. It makes sense, right? We want a little more than 28. But look, when you get twin 40s and twin 48s, think about the number of pallets instead of 26 to 30. Now we're talking about, a lot bigger number, 52 to 60 pallets per train. Now, it's hard for me. I can't sell you right now if it's just a road infrastructure issue, because it's got to be done in tandem with the infrastructure bill. I think the two go together, but do them at the same time, put it in the same package, and then you're going to see this huge influx of drivers trying to get their T endorsements, which you have to pull the two tandem trailers together. And we do at the same time, we're good to go.
So safety again. I'm gonna have to throw out safety.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I don't see twin 48s going across, 76 across Pennsylvania. There's a reason triples are allowed from Chicago to Youngstown, Ohio, and then stop there. You can't go. I mean, you driving in a car sometimes can be a little bit difficult. But the 33, you say the 33s really falls short. But that's a 15% increase. But even in your article there, it's 3.36 billion fewer miles and $2.8 billion in saved shipping costs based off of 2018 numbers. That's fairly significant, no?
Those are real numbers. And look, while I'm of the opinion that I want longer trailers, even that incremental move to 33s, 15% increase, that's 2 to 4 more pallets per trailer. That's something that's very tangible. Mm-hmm. And those numbers then impact the rest of the industry. But again, going back to that point I made, that's why I think right now you see the LTL carriers trying to lobby for that. Amazon has, a part in that as well. But if we're lobbying for longer extended trailers, you get the rest of the industry behind it. And you're right. Look, some geographies may not line up to this. I get it. But what we're dealing with is we're playing with the lowest common denominator based on federal rules that we grandfathered in all these crazy rules out in the Pacific Northwest or Rocky Mountains, and that's why those are allowed to exist. That's why Florida's got their turnpike rule. But it's the only state here in the Southeast where you've got that one carve out. So unless you're going back and forth from Orlando to Miami, which I was that day, and that's how I picked up on it, that's the only way you would know.
Yeah, excellent stuff, Andrew. I'm in. Are you in?
I don't know. We'll talk again.
He's undecided. We're going to have to bring you back again. He's still on the fence. You're going to have to do some more homework, and I grant you access back onto the show to try and sell him next time.
Perfect.
But Andrew, thank you so much. How do people reach out and learn about what you do there at Sudeth?
Yeah, for sure. Find me on LinkedIn. I'd be glad to talk logistics with what we do here at Sudeth. I love pigeonholes like this and going down a rabbit hole. Look, I really do believe there's a lot of change in the industry we could make with just some of these undercover topics like that. But appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. I know it's Sudeth, and I can't bring myself to say it.
Right. You just won't let it.
It doesn't roll off my tongue. I don't know why. But, next we have someone who I've known for a number of years, David Broering, who is president non-asset at NFI here, to talk about some job creation and some recent acquisitions. David, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I didn't realize I was coming on Shark Tank, so
well,
for you.
You're pitching job growth. I think.
Pitches job growth.
Amazing new gardening product you have to try. No.
Excellent stuff.
We definitely are pitching job growth here. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, excellent. So, David, we've been friends for a while. Can you a little bit of background on yourself and what is NFI doing, and tell us about these job growths, and then we can get into the CAI logistics, I guess, or CAI logistics acquisition that broke just shortly ago.
Sure. Yeah. So we're a multi-billion-dollar 3PL, warehousing, trucking, non-asset-based logistics, and port drayage services. Pretty evenly distributed between the four, though I will say what's driving a lot of our job creation is coming from that largest division of ours and distribution services. We operate 55 million square feet of warehouse around the U.S. and Canada. And we've got both a combination of seasonal growth factors as well as new business growth factors going on, where we could use 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 additional bodies in our warehouses today. Across the full gamut of the spectrum, right? Supervisors, material handlers, all different sorts of roles. And the growth of commerce specifically has just been insane these last few years for us.
Yeah, the warehouse space, we talked to several people about warehousing being a big issue over the last 2 years, especially with the trade war and, of course, the e-commerce boom, as you mentioned, being a real strong thing. So, have you, when you're growing and you're forecasting these jobs, you're expecting basically the warehouse space to be in stronger demand here the next couple of years as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, with everything that's happened with COVID, and to your point, Zach, it's been sort of this series of dominoes that's fallen, right? It was the tariffs, there was e-com boom happening, and people really changing the way their networks are managed and putting up fulfillment centers to couple with distribution centers. And then the tariffs happened and people started building inventory, and everybody was kind of saying there was going to be a bubble that popped, and though, oh, by the way, there's a pandemic coming right behind that. And with the pandemic, what we've seen is this story of haves and have-nots. And the ones that have been super busy, that are in that retail space are, the throughput is insane. You're in and you're out is nuts. And then you've got others that are sitting on a good amount of inventory because it's not moving the same way that it might have in the past. And the inventory strategy is going to continue to change. So for all those people that ran out of things they really wanted to sell and could have sold, they're now going to stock more of them in more places. And so all we see is the fervor behind industrial real estate on the commercial industrial side has never been bigger. And if you look at speculative construction and some of the things that are happening out there, I mean, they're going to put 90 or 100 million square feet of warehouse on the market this year, and there will be less than 3% total empty space at the end of the year.
That's amazing.
By the way, crazy stat, Amazon will have leased half of that space.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, you made reference to really just in case kind of inventory strategy over just in time, right? With them stocking more and more.
Yep.
But with the fragmentation of the markets, et cetera, and the change, and really you talked about this as well a little bit, the change in what is moving. There's some things that are just flying through it really fast and some are kind of slowing down a little bit, right? And that slowdown eats space as well. It doesn't turn as much. But are you seeing a demand for flexible warehousing space, like being able to have that flexibility within those different markets for different seasonalities and different demands at this time?
Yeah, and so we have 85 locations around the country. A majority of them are centered in 5 major markets. So the ones you would imagine: LA, Chicago, Dallas, and then up in the Allentown market are our 4 biggest markets. And in Southern California alone, we have over 15 million square feet of warehouse space. What we see is customers who originally leased 350,000 square feet in a 500,000 square foot building asking us for the other 150,000. Like, hey, how do I get? And so what we see is we're moving that 150,000 square foot customer that we put in there out to another building, leasing a new building to put them in, and then filling the building with that customer's product. And that's happening around the country for us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So obviously you guys are investing in your 5,000 more jobs coming out. How long do you see this going on? We were, at FreightWaves Now this morning, Andrew Cox looking at the different metrics for, just truckload movements and volumes, et cetera. But warehousing space, is this the new norm? Is it going out longer than forever? Or what do you guys see, especially in the just in case, I imagine?
I think just in case is going to drive a lot of change. There's no doubt that, if you look at the way that warehouse and network analysis work, they kind of go in fits and starts, right? So if you go back 20 years, everybody wanted 6 nodes, and then they went down to 3, and then they go to 12, and then they go back down to 6. So they tend to move and shift, but I think what you're going to see is a lot more of a separation of conveyables and non-conveyables. And so people trying to get highly efficient, less labor in your conveyable space, so your smaller boxes that can move faster, and then separating out the non-conveyable where you need more manual labor. Because make no mistake, part of the reason we need 5,000 jobs is despite unemployment, it's hard to find people that want to move stuff around in warehouses. It just is. And it's just like it's hard to find truck drivers. I read a stat the other day that was something like warehouse employment makes up over 1% of total employment in the country. And 20 years ago, it represented like 0.2% of employment in the country. So the number of warehouse jobs that also exist has expanded tremendously, and convincing those people that were doing retail work, might have been waiting tables to go move boxes, like that's a very different conversation. So, I would say, to answer your question directly, this momentum isn't stopping anytime, I don't think, in the next 18 months, just as people start to talk about pandemic proofing their supply chains or whatever they think that means, and figuring out a way to get to the bottom of how do we support this economy that's moving to a much different sort of exit strategy for logistics.
Yeah, kind of that panic-driven, like we've got to get inventory and control it, really. I mean, the issue here is really about controlling your inventory and bringing it into a space that you can manage with more visibility. I don't know if you've heard about supply chain visibility.
I've heard of transparency and visibility before. I'm not familiar with them, but I have heard of it spoken. And I mean, we just had our real estate and logistics summit, right? And one of the big things, obviously, talking about there was all the technology within the four walls. Right, from the cobots and the autonomous robots and even the exoskeleton suits and that type of stuff. I was kind of hoping you were going to wear an exoskeleton suit today, David. But
they won't let me have one. It's just, I'm a non-asset guy. I don't get cool warehouse stuff.
But speaking of non-asset, let's talk about CAI and how that fits into your non-asset play there at NFI, David.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, talk about a diamond in the rough. We just got lucky. Right place, right time. Found a great organization. Really, what mostly excites me, and I don't want to put anybody off by saying other things don't, but their intermodal acumen and the foundational business there, which was a company called ClearPoint Intermodal. They bring a degree of street cred we never had on the non-asset intermodal side. And we got better overnight with them. Great people. Really just fits well with our model. And we're now, believe it or not, already 8 weeks into that acquisition and starting to get settled. And it's really, it's been very accretive for our business overall. I mean, we'll be a $500 million non-asset-based logistics company next year, which is crazy considering we were, 50 million 8 years ago.
That's tremendous growth.
That's rapid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said that they're largely intermodal driven, and you're finding that there's a lot of synergy between these two, entities.
Yeah. So if you looked at our business pre-acquisition, we were predominantly brokerage, a little bit of intermodal, transportation management, and global. They had a good-sized flatbed-focused brokerage. They had a really nice-sized intermodal marketing company, and then they had a little bit of global. So we just stitched the three divisions into our three divisions. Not just, I mean, it's not like it just happened overnight. We're continuing to work on it. But their intermodal acumen and their flatbed buying power on the brokerage side both brought us incredible value. But just the experience, I mean, it's hundreds of years of intermodal experience in that organization and relationships and volume. I mean, we'll do probably $100 million in non-asset intermodal next year when we were doing 25 previously. So it's a legit business.
Yeah, no, and so I'm assuming that you guys anticipate strength in the intermodal market moving forward as well with that acquisition.
Well, I'll tell you, right now, strength is a relative concept because the networks are a disaster. It's really hard to move intermodal freight right now. Congestion, train speeds are up, but they are a mess in Southern Cal. They're a mess in Chicago. It's tough to do business in intermodal right now. You saw it in J.B. Hunt's numbers, right? J.B. Hunt's numbers came through loud and clear. Equipment isn't moving efficiently, but we like the play long term because, look, intermodal's here to stay. And as these rates on the OTR go up, intermodal gets more competitive.
Sure does.
Excellent stuff, David. Thank you so much for being on the show, my friend. We'll have you on again real soon, and you have a great day, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Lots of interesting stuff we talked about today, my friend.
Yeah, it was a pretty big show.
Yeah, it really was. You know what's going to be big as well?
What's that?
October 23rd.
What's happening on October 23rd?
October 23rd is our next virtual event. It's
That's Friday.
Yeah, it is. This Friday, refrigerated supply chains have helped keep this country supplied with vital grocery items throughout the pandemic of 2020. Obviously, we've been talking about this. Because of the dedication of every participant along cold chains, grocery stores have remained stocked and plentiful, helping millions of struggling Americans to stay fed and safe. It's live. It's free.
Virtual.
It's virtual. Go to live.freightwaves.com to register. It all kicks off Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern on FreightWaves TV. I'll be here with Dooner at the live desk and so on. So it'll be awesome. Right now we've got a weather update again with Mr. Nick Austin. Take it away, Nick.
Hey, thanks, fellas. We have a tropical storm on our hands. Not the United States. It's not going to affect the U.S., but it could come pretty close to Bermuda. Folks there may have to watch out for this one. So we'll look at it in sonar right now. It looks like the most likely path, it's going to stay east of the island, so it's probably going to have low impacts on Bermuda. But if we look at all the different tropical models, there's one that has it almost making a direct hit on the island, but that's the outlier. It's probably not going to happen. So minimal impacts to supply chains there or any containerized cargo that's in that area, but still worth just watching, because it's probably going to become a hurricane sometime over the next couple of days, a Category 1 hurricane. It is going to get stronger, so just something to watch. Now, this is the 26th named storm of this season in the Atlantic. I believe if we have one more, that'll set a record for the most named storms in any single season.
And what name will that be? I'll play Kevin Hill.
How well do you guys know your Greek alphabet? What do you think? What's the next one going to be? If we do get another named storm, what's after Epsilon?
Hold on a second.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. Is it lambda?
No.
I don't know. I'm not even going to guess.
It'll be zeta.
Zeta.
Yeah.
Zeta.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta.
If we have another
Crazy
one.
Greeks.
So we'll keep our eye on it. We'll keep tracking it here at FreightWaves, that's for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
So, yeah, Bermuda. Can you get hit?
Well, I mean, they also had the king tides, the coastal
that's
flooding, with, and a lot of the waves came across from Epsilon, I believe, that hit the Florida coastline there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Even the surface transportation, and it's that far out in sea, can get impacted. So.
Yeah, you got to stay on top of the weather. Like we said, hey, watch out for the king tide and waves, and then put your chains on because the snow's coming.
Exactly.
So what do you got coming up on the supply cold chain event summit?
So Anthony and I are going to have on Zach Rogers. He got a little abbreviated last week, but he does have experience with Amazon and in his previous life as well. We're going to dive into, the economics of cold chain. I mean, the food supply, we've talked about it previously, being tremendously impacted this past year, and it's caused a lot of reorganization from basically having to divert away from, commercial food production into grocery and more of a fresher supply chain management. So we'll be diving into that to see how that has impacted capacity for refrigerated and warehousing and things of that nature.
Excellent. So that's your show this week is on Friday. It's on Friday during the event.
Friday at 2 p.m.
At 2 p.m. Okay. Awesome. Very good. So yesterday, if you missed it on What the Truck, we talked about a whole bunch of stuff yesterday, but we talked about the octagon. Who would you bring into the octagon if you could bring one person in logistics? Two go in and one
and you took out like half of the logistics industry, I believe.
Yeah, well, because I spit one out in NFL, guilty about spitting one out, so I named a couple other people, and it's more of it's going to be a tag team event. I think is what it's going to turn out to be.
Yeah. So you're going to do that this Friday, right?
What, the tag team event?
Yeah.
We're going to do it live. Yeah, but it'll be virtual.
Virtually.
It'll be totally. Who would win in the freight octagon on What the Truck yesterday? So yeah, you gotta go check that out. Who would be yours? Do you have anybody in mind, or you don't want to say? You want to sneak up behind him?
Yeah, you never see me coming.
No, you're not going to talk smack. It's just it's done.
It's over.
You're all afterwards.
Sun Tzu, Art of War. You never let them know.
Never let them know. Anyways, check that out. It was a lot of fun, and check that out. And you can find all FreightWaves shows on demand on FreightWaves TV app or on your favorite podcast player. Just simply subscribe to Freightcasts and get every single FreightWaves podcast all on one feed. That feed is also the exclusive audio home to the Midday Market update. Have a great day.